Dear colleagues, friends, dear dedication, I reopen the 3109th meeting in which we will continue our examination of the State Report of Montenegro. Lots of questions have been raised in the second round. Madam Rabrenovic, I leave it to you and your delegation to provide the responses to our committee. May I give you the floor to coordinate the responses of your delegation? You have the floor, Madam.
Hvala, gospodine predsjedavajući.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as we have heard all the questions, they are very much challenging. And I hope that the members of my delegation will do their best to answer all of them. We have a plan of answering your questions in a way that will take turns. However, each member of the delegation will answer the questions related to their respective areas of competence. And therefore, I'm first of all giving the floor to Mr. Zolan Ulama, who is the National Coordinator for Fighting Trafficking in Persons and who is the chief of the Montenegrin government's unit for combating the trafficking in human beings. Thank you, dear Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to use this opportunity to greet all of you. And at the very beginning, since the trafficking in persons is a global problem, global issue that has been recognized recently in all the countries of the world, including in Montenegro, as a crime against humanity, integrity, and human dignity. Montenegro has resolving of this problem taken in several directions. Therefore, we have recognized this multidisciplinary approach as one of the best in order to resolve this problem. This, first of all, entitles good cooperation among all the state authorities, international organizations, the civic sector. This cooperation is based on the cooperation agreement signed between the state authorities, 6 NGOs, and therefore their obligations are defined by the law and specified through operative procedures whereby the signatories apply them in the resolution of every specific trafficking in persons case with reference to the women, children who are the victims of the trafficking. At this moment of the globalization, when the world wars and intensive demographic movements are the cause of many negative effects, I believe that the best response of the government of Montenegro and therefore the state of Montenegro was the adoption of the new strategic document for fighting trafficking in human beings, in persons actually. Therefore, Montenegro was among the first countries of the region to adopt the strategic document in the area of fighting trafficking in human beings. Through this strategic document, we have outlined the national politics and national policies in fighting trafficking in persons for the period 2012-2018, and while defining the goals of the strategies, apart from having it harmonized with the international standards and relevant recommendations, we have provided for the functional relation with the already adopted strategies and the plans related to fighting organized crime, integrated border management, fighting illegal drugs trafficking, fighting illegal migrations, and so on. National Action Plan for the Decade of Roma for the period 2005-2015 with the National Plan for Achieving Gender Equality in Montenegro, and this very strategy and its complementary action plans have been specially written by taking specially into consideration the rights of the children, including RAE population. Saromashkali and Egyptian population. Therefore, the strategy has clearly defined the goals, the guidelines and directions for fighting the scourge of humanity and the organized system for fighting the trafficking in persons in the public and civic sector as well. Therefore, We have pointed out 6 basic areas: prevention, education, identification of the victims, support and protection, reintegration, efficient criminal proceedings, international cooperation, coordination, and partnership. Let me first of all point out how come that we find regional and international cooperation very important. We have been the witnesses of the fact that day after day borders basically do not exist. They are not recognized anymore, and unless you have a good international cooperation, I'm positive that you cannot achieve a successful result. Therefore, we have introduced new activities, and we have enhanced existing ones. And apart from prosecuting and fighting against the perpetrators, we have put a special emphasis on raising public awareness, because we believe that every individual has to realize that fighting this scourge of humanity actually brings benefits to all of us, and therefore this raising of the public awareness is deemed extremely important. The government of Montenegro systematically overviews and monitors the activities in this area through this Office for Fighting Trafficking in Human Beings and the Working Group for Monitoring the Strategy in this area. And I will try to answer the answer that the gentleman asked me, and that is the role of this Office for the Trafficking in Human Beings. And with relation to this, we have to say that it is highly positioned within the state system, state administration system, and the role of this office is to coordinate the representatives of the state institutions, of the international organizations, which means the NGO sector as well. And that means to have all the positive forces in fighting the trafficking in human beings united. I'm the head of this office. At the same time, I'm the presiding of the National Working Body for Fighting Trafficking in Human Beings, which is composed of the representatives of the state institutions at the level of the deputy ministers. Then we have the representatives of the NGOs involved as well. And our task is to monitor the implementation of the national strategy and the relevant action plans in fighting trafficking in human beings. So this would be all about the role of this office. With reference to our budget, let me say that it is around 170,000 euros. However, we believe that it can always be better in terms of that it can be higher, but it is enough for our needs, having in mind the fact that the other representatives of the state authorities, institutions participate in the financing activities, especially when it comes to the protection of the victims. Therefore, let me reiterate this agreement that is extremely good and signed between the representatives of the state authorities and institutions on one hand and the representatives of the NGO sector on the other, whereby we use it to protect the victims. And at any moment when we have a victim at the Montenegrin territory, let me just point out at this moment that we have the state-run shelter where the victims have all the necessary support and protection, started from the security on psychological, sociological, and so on. And that victim is never left alone. We monitor his or her progress until the time of his or her integration or reintegration to the normal life. Let's put it that way. Therefore, we have different programs in order to achieve this. The programs are in place, and that would be all about the budget. And remind me, you had asked me if we supported the NGO sector. As the office, we do so through various projects. For example, we have a project in terms that, let me explain, that we have an NGO heading a shelter, and that shelter was the kind of their project. And on the other hand, the government through our office finances all their operational needs. So everything that they need, including their salaries. Therefore, through financing various projects of this kind, we support them. By them, I mean NGO sector, and they are directly involved in the work of the National Working Body for fighting trafficking in human beings. So I believe that I have exhausted the answers to your questions. Should I have to add something, please do not hesitate to remind me. So this would be drawing back on this office, but let me go back to the transnational character of the trafficking in human beings and its strong linkage with the organized crime, which made it necessary to have a good regional cooperation. Therefore, in order to achieve this, in the past period, we signed several bilateral agreements with the countries of the region. And we are on a good path to sign several additional ones. Therefore, I believe that to this extent, we will manage through those agreements to resolve in even more quality and better manner some of those issues. What I should have pointed out perhaps at the very beginning, but I will do on this occasion, is that trafficking in human beings in Montenegro is found at the level of the individual cases. However, we have been recognized as a transit country, less as an origin or final destination country, but we still want to work in our full capacity because we want to be ready to face all the potential coming problems, because I believe since we are at the gate of the EU, to put it that way, we may be of an interest for someone as a destination country once we access the EU, because all the victims, as you know, are striving to achieve better living standard and better quality of life, and therefore they fall into various traps that are posted before them. As far as our capacities are concerned, we are paying a lot of attention to increasing the expert capacities of our institutions, and therefore I will try to link with this the answer to your question, which related, I believe, to the social workers, if I'm not mistaken. What I could say to this extent is that we are giving special priority or putting special emphasis on enhancing those expert capacities of the members of the state institutions. Therefore, in order to achieve that, in the past period, we had a lot of training for the police, for the prosecutorial office, judges, social workers, and to add to that, we did indicators last year, which are very important and very good, indicating our progress in this area, which are the special and general indicators in order to recognize early the victims of the trafficking in human beings. And we have disseminated them to the police, especially to the border police, where we especially looked into that area because we find it very interesting. Apart from this, in my team, for example, in our very office, we have 2 trainers who had been certified in order to perform kind of TOT training of trainers, or to perform the training upon the members of the border police. Therefore, we also disseminated those special and general indicators to the members of the border police as well. And all the representatives of the state institutions worked jointly on having them put in place. And I believe that they are very operational and very good. The other question was about the NGO with, related to the Roma population, early marriages. Let me point out that the problem that we have with Roma population, and let me go back to one research that we did last year, because prior to that, Montenegro initiated a meeting of the national coordinators for fighting trafficking in persons of the countries of the region, because we wanted to see what common problems we face. And we came to the conclusion that the children beggars are actually one of the common problems of the countries of the region. Therefore, we did one research with this topic, and together with the Ombudsman's Office, we conducted this research. Unfortunately, the results of the research showed that our worst fears actually came true, and that was that the children, especially of the Roma population, were exposed to begging as one of the most vulnerable categories of our society, and they were actually going kind of hand in hand as a vulnerable category with the children deprived of parental care. The research showed that those children are most exploited, Roma children, who are children beggars, by their own parents, actually. And what we concluded was that we had to invest additional activities in raising their awareness, to working with them, having peer education process in place, and we are doing all we can in order to get them off the streets, whereby the best conclusion reached was to have them included into the educational system and to have them educated in order to make them loyal citizens in the future. And the conclusion that we came to was that the work with the children themselves was not the only thing to do, but that we had to work with their parents as well in order to guarantee for their better future. This was something I wanted to share with you when it comes to the Roma population, because we concluded that it was necessary to initiate a campaign when it comes to the Roma population children, beggars children, in a way that they would not be given the money when they beg, because by doing so you support a kind of way of living which does not provide for the safe or productive future for them. Therefore, I believe that we have done a lot in this direction, but I have to say that we do not have a lot of domicile population in Montenegro who are begging on the streets. Those are usually children coming from the countries of the region, especially during the tourist season, which is most emphasized, and those bilateral agreements that we have signed with the countries of the region, having in mind the fact that the information that we have on our disposal are basically that those children come mostly from Serbia or from Kosovo, would support us hopefully in resolving this problem successfully, because this is a kind of general problem for all the countries of the region that we all suffer from, to put it that way. And in addition, let me remind you that as far as the normative framework is concerned, the legal framework of Montenegro has incorporated the best international standards. We adopted the UN Convention Against Transnational and Organized Crime, the Protocol for Fighting Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children. We have ratified the Council of Europe's Convention for Fighting Trafficking in Persons, UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, Optional Protocol on the Rights of the Child, related to the child prostitution, child pornography, and trafficking of children, and the protocol on the prevention and fighting the use of the children in the armed conflicts. We have provided for this within the criminal code and criminal proceedings law. And we have provided within the criminal code and the law on the criminal procedure and the amendments and changes to the law on the state prosecutor, the law on the protection of the victims, whereby the criminal code of Montenegro includes the criminal offenses which have criminalized actually the trafficking in persons, Article 444, 445, trafficking in minors, for adoption, slavery, and transport of persons in the slavery. And we have incriminated 2 new criminal offenses, trading in parts of human body and advertising the trade and chilling parts of human parts. When it comes, Article 44 has been broadened as the general form, and we have introduced the slavery and activities similar to slavery and trade in order to conclude illegal marriages. I'm sorry for hogging the floor. I apologize. We had this in the introductory part, and I will give you the floor later if necessary. So please, let's give the opportunity to the other members of the delegation to take the floor. I will answer the question of Mr. Benakur with reference to the religious issues in Montenegro. The constitution of Montenegro has divided the authorities of the state and the church, and this is the basis of all the relations with all the religious communities in Montenegro. So the state is separated from the church. Apart from this, there is a guaranteed right to all the religious community to perform all the religious rites and to organize their own relationships with the believers. The state and the government of Montenegro do not interfere in the relations between and among religious communities, and they let them to arrange their own relations. Therefore, the government never interferes the relations of the Montenegrin Orthodox and Serbian Orthodox Church, but we encourage tolerance and relations which will not cause any tensions among the believers. The stance of the country is that the basic human rights is the freedom of expression and religious beliefs. The expectation and preservation of the spiritual and national identity, whereby the religious communities which had been existing for years do not have to be registered. However, in the case of the new ones, that is the rule. The Ministry of the Interior of Montenegro only states the fact that someone has registered the establishment of a certain religious community, but they are not authorized by the law to consider as to whether the religious community meets the criteria or not. The Ministry of the Interior does not keep the register of the religious community, but only the register of those who have kind of applied, who have registered, and based on that register, they issue a certificate that they had registered. These days, we have been working on the draft law on the legal position of the religious communities in Montenegro. And therefore, I will give the floor to Mrs. Blanka Radošević, who is the Deputy Minister to the Ministry of Human Rights and Minority. So, Deputy Minister, to tell you more about the working on this draft law.
So, working on this constitutional provision that was mentioned by the director Arabranovic will be implemented through the adoption of the new law on freedoms of religion, namely the current law has been adopted in 1977, which was a long time ago, and the work group has just completed the working version of the new draft law on the religious freedoms. This working version contains several chapters from thematic point of view. The first one refers to the fundamental provisions of religion. The second one should refer to the system of registration of religious organizations, but on a completely different grounds compared to the existing ones, and defining the norms according to which territorial competency of a religious organization, a religious community registered in Montenegro cannot extend outside of Montenegro. The third chapter treats the relationship of religious organizations and system of education in Montenegro, and the fourth chapter refers to the property relationship, and we have a stance where religious organizations, besides the rites and rituals do not have any exclusivity, but when it comes to trading of property, they are in completely equal position with other legal bodies, which means that the real estate that are in the property of religious organizations or are given to them to be used, we will use the existing legislation governing this area. Also, in the proposal of the new law on religious organizations, we propose that the state can provide the funds for the pension and health insurance of the practitioners of religion, and up until now the state of Montenegro provided pension and health insurance to all of the practices of the, meaning priests of the religious organizations, if they have valid documentation, but now they have the possibility to found their own pension and health insurance funds according to the existing laws of Montenegro. But we will see after the public discussion about this draft law, which of the whether this will be adopted in the final version of the law. Thank you, Ms. Branca. Now we will hear, we will give the floor to Sani Kalezic, Secretary of the Supreme Court of Montenegro, and the spokesperson of the Supreme Court. Good day to all of you. I shall give the part of the reply to the question of Mr. Benasho concerning LGBT population and the topics that the court cases which are being discussed in courts at the moment. During 2014 in Montenegrin courts, currently we had 4 court cases. Out of that number, 2 first instance criminal proceedings are currently ongoing. One of them, the defendants were in breach of Criminal Code Article 1, paragraph of a threat to the public security, and the second case was violent behavior from Article 399 of the Criminal Code of Montenegro. During this period, we have adopted 2 court decisions. One of them was exonerating for those who were charged with violent behavior, and this exonerating court decision is not final. We have rendered another court decision, and one person, due to the violation of security, the person was sentenced to a sentence of prison for the 30 days. This is not a final decision, and the appeals procedure is currently ongoing as well. As Mr. Benasher mentioned, the NGOs as well. We concretely did not have any criminal cases, but we have 2 misdemeanor cases where plaintiffs were NGOs representing an LGBT population. One court decision from 2013 where their plea was adopted, and this court decision was final. And another case between NGO of LGBT population representatives, we have a court settlement, and another case is still ongoing. I'm using the opportunity to highlight the importance of human rights, especially the rights of LGBT population, that we have great cooperation with NGO LGBT Progress. And in March of this year, we have signed a memorandum on cooperation, and its goal is, first of all, education, specialist and professional training of judges and judicial administration. We had a successfully organized conference. Furthermore, the purpose of this memorandum is strengthening the capacities of judges for understanding human rights of LGBT persons. a key of international LGBT movement and international standards concerning sexual orientation and gender identity. Also, our cooperation has the purpose of improvement of general knowledge of population concerning marginalized groups and judicial system, and improvement of communication between LGBT community in Montenegro and judicial authorities, while improving the level of knowledge of LGBT community on our national legal system, functioning of courts, and possibilities to access courts in cases they need their human rights and freedoms to be protected and defended. We started a joint production, and this year we have published two publications in cooperation with the LGBT Forum Progress NGO, LGBT Core Practices and Standards. And second publication is The Law and LGBT Rights. These publications were submitted to judges in Montenegro, and there is an electronic form found at the web portal of the courts of Montenegro, so it's available to the general public and laymen and professionals in Montenegro. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Sanya. Since the time is going by quickly, we will have to be a bit shorter, so I would like to give the floor to Nataša Pešić, Secretary from the Ministry of Justice. Thank you. I just wanted to add something, since you raised the question whether hate speech was taken into account concerning sexual orientation. In the normative sense, our criminal code in 2013 was amended, so we believe that through introduction of Article 3 for the Article 442, Paragraph 3, national and racial discrimination, we have included also sexual orientation. If somebody expanding the ideas of superiority of one race or propagating hatred concerning race, sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or some other personal characteristic, or is enticing racial or other forms of discrimination, shall be sent to prison for the period between 3 months and 3 years. And in the criminal code there is a special provision concerning hate crimes in the Article 42A. So the law states that if the criminal offense was done due to hatred, because somebody belongs to a certain race, ethnicity, sex, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity of a person, this shall be regarded as an aggravating circumstance, except if this is not a basic characteristic of this of the severe criminal offense in case. Thank you, Nataša. Now, Ljulia Jonai, Senior Police Inspector in the Police Directorate. Good day to all of you. I would like to greet you all. It is an honor to be a part of this process of providing the answers concerning the Covenant, initial report on the Covenant on civil and political rights. I would just like to add something concerning the part of the answer, concerning the question raised by Mr. Bundushari, concerning the LGBT community. The police authority, police directorate and Ministry of the Interior for 6 years already are actively cooperating with LGBT community in Montenegro. Officers of the Montenegrin police, within their capacity, with special sensibility, approach the protection of rights of these people, and this is the prevention, discovering and processing of the offenses, whether these are criminal offenses or misdemeanor offenses, which are damaging to the members of the LGBT population. We have signed a memorandum of cooperation with NGO Forum Progress in 2011 and with Juventus NGO from 2012, and are also fighting for promotion and protection of LGBT community. Montenegro. Also, Police Directorate has been cooperating and is cooperating with NGO Queer Montenegro, and we are open to cooperation with other NGOs as well. advocation of Montenegrin police concerning the protection of rights of this population has been recognized by relevant international organizations and networks which are dealing with the protection of LGBT populations. So Police Directorate was the first police organization which got the award Friend of Justice. This is an award given in 2013, given by the conference Justice in the Balkans, Equality for Sexual Minorities. 6 officers of the Police Directorate in 2010 attended the training for sensitive behavior with the LGBT community. This was organized in the US and in Canada. Trainings continued in our country as well. So in June 2013, 54 police officials and officers from all of the organizational units successfully attended this training. I would like to especially highlight that the Police Directorate gave maximum professional contribution, that 2 pride parades, one in Budva, which was the first LGBT pride parade in Montenegro in June 2013, and the other in Podgorica in October 2013, were safe for all of the participants. And to this purpose, we have set up operative headquarters, and we had high quality safety procedures so that adversaries of the pride parades were not able to breach the so-called safety rings and reach any of the participants, and none of the participants were injured and the police for this successful pride parade in Podgorica, we were praised by all of the relevant international institutions. The management of the Police Directorate and the whole Ministry of the Interior is dedicated fully to respecting of all of the human rights and freedoms of all of the citizens, especially members of the sexual minorities. So I will not burden you with the statistics. We can submit them in written form. Thank you, Ms. Ljulja. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Radule Koljevic, Judge of the Supreme Court.
I will try to answer the question of Mr. Benankur, and I apologize if I haven't pronounced his name properly. Having in mind the time lot that I have at my disposal in order to give enough time to my colleagues to answer. Article 66 of the Constitution provisions that the employees have a right to strike. The right to strike can be only limited to the employees in the military, police, state authorities, and the public service in order to protect the public interest in line with the law. By the Criminal Code of the State of Montenegro, it has been provisioned that the article actually 227 norms states a norm that it is forbidden to deprive anyone of the right to strike, because this article provisions that if anyone is deprived of the right to be involved, to have a right to strike or to strike himself or herself, will be punished by the imprisonment up to 1 year. By the special changes from the Criminal Code from 2013, it has been provisioned that the penalty from the paragraph 1 of this article will be imposed onto the person who abolishes the working agreement to one or more employees if they participated in the strike organized and undertaken according to the law, collective agreement, or if other measures had been applied upon that person breaching their working rights. The same code provisions as the separate criminal offense the misuse of the right to strike. This criminal offense is imposed onto those who organize or lead a strike opposite to the law, whereby the persons or property are endangered if the value of the property is over 20,000 euros, or if that caused severe body injuries to the persons. And if other criminal offenses are not recognized within this, the imprisonment punishment can be up to 3 years. In the practice insofar of Montenegrin courts, we have not had a single case where someone was indicted or proclaimed guilty for such criminal offenses. In the same way, no one had ever put into the question the constitutionality of those provisions and whether or not they're harmonized with the constitution, and never anyone ever asked this on the part of the EU or international experts. Thank you. So, to Mrs. Mira Samardžić, who is a Deputy Special Prosecutor for combating organized crime, corruption, terrorism, and war crimes. She will be telling you something about oversight measures. I will try to answer these questions. In which way and how the material is destroyed, obtained by the secret surveillance measures, if it is not used or was not used during the criminal proceeding. Secret surveillance measures, especially this one that was a part of the question today, such as tapping the phones, as long as we have the prosecutorial investigation, Montenegro gave good results, and no case of the organized crime in the past 5 years ever passed without the evidence collected by the secret surveillance measures. This measure especially supported us in being proactive in the investigation of the criminal offenses related to the organized crime. However, prosecutors, police, and the court are very cautious when it comes to applying this measure, to implementing it in practice, because the first thing that we always keep in mind, all of us who are involved in this proceeding, is to follow all the rights and respect all the privacy rights. To that extent, our criminal code introduced this measure only for the most severe criminal offenses, including those that represent a problem in Montenegro, such are severe forms of the organized crime, corruption, crime in general, and trafficking in persons, including prostitution. I will not be giving the details as to in which way these measures are introduced and who implements them, but I will say that it is the truth that during the pre-investigative procedure, in order to implement those measures, it was necessary to have the call registers, the listings from the telephones, and that it was provided for the prosecutors and the police to get those listings directly from the mobile operators and telephone operators in general. And in the past couple of years, it has provisions that those listings can be obtained only upon the investigative judge's order. All of such data obtained in this way, especially when we are speaking about pre-investigative and investigative procedures, are deemed secret, and therefore both in the law and in practice it is provisioned that if the evidence material obtained by the secret surveillance measures, especially by wiretapping, will not be used in the criminal proceedings, it will be destroyed. Therefore, it is provisioned by the law as well. And unless the prosecutor starts or initiates the criminal proceedings against the accused, all the material obtained by using these measures will be submitted in a closed envelope with a special mark on it to the investigative judge, who will order this material to be destroyed with the presence of the prosecutor and an investigative judge, and records on this will have to be made. So every evidence collected in this way is not considered legally valid, and before this material is destroyed, let me just remind you that the investigative judge informs the person against whom this measure had been undertaken, and that person has an opportunity to get an insight into this material, except for the 3 special circumstances provisioned by the law. So thank you, Mira. Now Mrs. Natasha Pesic. Just the issues relating to the minors. That's to say, the juveniles, as to how many of them there are in prisons. Thank you. Let me tell you something about juvenile judiciary. The questions were how old they have to be in order to be deemed criminally liable. The law on the proceedings against the minors provisions in Article 3 that the minor is a person who at the time of the committing of the criminal offense is 14 but not 18. So the younger minor is the one who is at the time of committing the criminal offense 14 but not 16, and kind of senior minor is one who is 16 but not 18 at the time of having committed the criminal offense. As far as the very conception and organization in the courts is concerned, the law on the minors in the Article 46 provisions the authorities of the courts, and the Article 42 of the same law provisions that the proceeding against the juvenile minor is to be done by the state prosecutor for minors, the judges panel for the minors, and the judge for the minors. The Article 46 provisions strictly that all the persons dealing with juvenile delinquency in the criminal procedure have to be specially trained in the area of the rights of the child. As far as the implementation of the juvenile legal system with reference to treating the juveniles in the criminal proceedings is concerned, I have to say that this is a special law, and these rules are applied as a priority measure compared to the provisions of the criminal code. I'm saying this because Articles 46 to 50 of this law provision for the rules of treating the juveniles. Therefore, for example, the one of the exceptions to the criminal code is the defense of the juveniles, which is obligatory, where the defendant lawyer has to be actually a lawyer, and the Article 51 provisions that no one can be acquitted from the duty to be a witness on the circumstances necessary to decide if the juvenile is fit for trial and on the circumstances in which he or she lives. What I have to emphasize is that as far as the education and importance that the state of Montenegro pays to the juvenile delinquency, I have to say that in 2012 we had, because in March the government adopted the plan for the implementation of the law and then is supported of the IPA project, Justice for Children, implemented by the Ministry of Justice in cooperation with UNICEF's office in Montenegro. We achieved significant results in terms of educating and training the prosecutors and judges and all the persons included in those proceedings. We also paid a lot of attention to the juvenile judiciary, and in the negotiating chapter 23, Montenegro recognized the need for further education process aimed at all the judges and prosecutors involved in such process, and this trend will be continued in the future. And as far as the number of the juveniles who are in the penalty institutions, I have to say that they are separated both in detention facilities and prison facilities, and for the time being there isn't a single minor who had committed a criminal offense in Montenegro. Therefore those capacities are empty for the time being, and this is something that I'm extremely pleased about, not to have the minors. And now I would like to say my colleague Sanya to say something about the courts. Therefore we have special juvenile judges, and the panel of judges for the juveniles who do not deal on the first instance verdicts, but with reference to the remedies and complaints as well. The annual allocation of cases in the court is done every year, and it is specifically stated which judges will be dealing in the minors cases, juvenile cases, and the panels are set up as well. All the courts have expert services in charge of providing the support to the courts, where we have expert persons of various specializations and administrative capacities of the courts when it comes to the juvenile delinquency have been increased, because we have psychologists, social workers, special trainers in terms of someone dealing with special education called defectologists, and we also have special services at all higher courts and Supreme State Prosecutorial Office, and we have equipped 5 basic courts with the audio and video materials and equipment which is fit for the hearings or taking the witness statements from the juveniles in order to avoid the double victimizations of minors. So thank you, Sanya. We apologize for speaking too fast, but we would just like to use those time lots that we have at our disposal to tell you as much as possible. And therefore, I will just step in saying something about the issues that the government is about to report on, and then I will give the floor back to my colleagues to discuss in more details the issues about displaced persons, IDPs and Roma, and that will be the conclusion. Reference to the answer on media on Mr. Shani, let me first say that the visit to Montenegro by the special rapporteur for the freedom of the media was very important, and his report was also very important. However, this wasn't a kind of complaint, but it stated a number of positive results in the pluralism of media in Montenegro, but also a significant number of recommendations. One of the important statements was that Montenegro, among a small number of countries, we have decriminalized defamation, which opened the full possibility for the expression of opinion, and this enabled in Montenegro, and this enabled better information provision and meeting the public interest to give the full information and to have a better responsibility of those who make the decision. The privatization of Pobjeda was included in every decision regarding privatization plans for the period 2007-2014. Irrespective of whether it was simply about launching a tender or continued implementation of a certain tender, which clearly indicates the intention and willingness of the government of Montenegro to privatize this company in compliance with the obligation under the law on media. The Council for Privatization and Capital Projects actually launched 3 public tenders for privatization of the shareholding company Pobjeda in 2007, 2008 and 2011, and those tenders failed solely and only as a result of the withdrawal of bidders who were originally interested in purchasing Pobjeda, and not because the government did not want to have it privatized. In July, there was an invitation to start the procedure of bankruptcy actually in this company, which is the continuation of transformatization and privatization, and the possibility to relieve it from liabilities. The state director has started this initiation of the bankruptcy procedure because they could not collect their claims, and this is all the continuation of transformation and privatization started in 2004, which was run in several phases, and by this Pobeda starts the final phases of its reorganization and looking for the strategic partner, starting the bankruptcy procedure over the company, which is in a majority owned by the state, shows the good work of this organization and shows that the state authorities cannot be considered a kind of special or under special treatment when it comes to the other subjects, actually companies present at the state market. So let me just say that the international organizations seated in Geneva, such as the International Labour Organization, is currently considering the kind of elementary issue, and that is what could we expect under these conditions with reference to the three-party social dialogue among the government, employers and employees, and the social element represents an important part of the general policy of the government. And to that extent, we apply all the provisions of the International Covenant and Convention, and we are still looking for the official stance on it. So now I would like Mr. Vukcevic, who is the Deputy Minister of the Interior of Montenegro, to take the floor.
Thank you very much. I shall try to be brief and answer the questions concerning the journalists, what the government and the police department did to protect the journalists, especially those who are investigating corruption and organized crime, and what they did in the process to punish those who violated their rights. I would like to correct something that we provided in the answers in the replies concerning those who were journalists, and the analysis of the risk assessment. This analysis is completed. It's not ongoing, so it's completed. So I have it with me. So this analysis is completed, and the goal of this analysis that the Ministry of the Interior and the Police Directorate did as a sort of a preventive activity, and I shall say a bit later more about repressive activities that we undertake, but we try to have an overview of the problems that accompany the work of journalists, motives for the violence that they suffer, and the journalists and their property, and to propose the activities to overcome these problems to the state institutions and the media as well, to contribute to the better environment. So we treated with the attacks on the journalists for the last 10 years, so from starting 2004, and we have... Okay, just a few more sentences. I apologize, but the key issue, Roma, Arab population, we want to provide detailed information as much as we can, and the other information shall be submitted in written form. And we talked about journalists yesterday, so I apologize for interrupting you. So in 2013 and 14, we saw the attacks on the journalist Olivera Vukcevic. We processed 6 persons, and these cases are currently in court. When it comes to the explosive devices in the VST daily newspaper, we have processed 2 persons, and the threats to the editor-in-chief of Monitor Weekly, we processed 1 person that admitted to threatening the editor-in-chief. When it comes to the commissions, we have work groups. They work well, and the government adopted their reports and recommendations. And when it comes to the commission on the work. I would like to say that the police, in this commission, we have 2 journalists from daily newspapers, Dan and Vienesti, and we are also, we are securing, we provided security to 2 journalists and to the one daily newspaper officers. And whether asylum seekers can work in Montenegro, yes, we issue working permits, and asylum seekers who have additional protection, we can issue them with the working license if they find an employer. Concerning the project of mobile biometrics, this is successfully being implemented. The mobile biometry unit visited the CONI camp 3 times, and by the end of the year we shall visit it at least 2 more times. And when it comes to the request for issuing of personal documents, that's it. But concerning the law on the asylum, we have a work group set up and the action plan for Chapter 24. We envisage that the new law on asylum should be adopted by the end of 2015. Thank you, Miloš. Sorry for rushing you and interrupting you, but I wanted our delegation to provide as many answers as possible. Now, Julia, please take the floor concerning the displaced and internally displaced persons and Roma population. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. In case that we do not manage to provide you with all of the answers, we shall inform you in written form. I just wanted to let you know at the very beginning that we, from Montenegro, concerning this multiculturalism and how much it is represented in our country during the previous month, we opened the 11th manifestation of multiculturalism, our reality, and this represents Montenegro as an example of good practice concerning the affirmation of coexistence, and this manifestation is a proof that we as a society are prepared to send the confirmation on fundamental values of Montenegro and adhering to the basic human rights through cultural form. Difference in cultures and traditions is the foundation of our joint force, and as our joint culture we should accept this, nurture it, and continue to develop it as a guarantee for sustainable peace. And confirmation of all of this is that we, in the late 1990s, due to the wars on the territory of former Yugoslavia, Montenegro provided shelter to all of the refugees. This is what my colleague mentioned, and ensured their protection during. So the number of internally displaced persons was at the moment 1/4 of the total population of Montenegro, but as on the other issues, for this issue, we also try to meet all of the demands and requirements. So the laws, first of all, the law on foreigners, law on citizenship, and adoption of strategic documents. The government has tried to all of that to create the requirements to efficiently solve the issues of internally displaced and displaced persons in cooperation with the national community and in accordance with the international standards and principles. The complexity of this problem is overcoming the existing capacities of the institutions of Montenegro in their independent work. Strategy for permanent solving of issues of IDPs and DPs with a special focus on Camp Koning. We have set up through that document the framework for acting of the state when it comes to permanent and sustainable solving of issues of DPs and IDPs from August 2011 up until 2015. Blanca, now if you can continue with the education of Raj population. Education and employment are very important activities focused on improvement of the general position and improvement of the quality of life of Raj population. When it comes to education, so preschool and elementary school education are of essential importance for the growth and development of a child's character. So we are taking care about the fact that they should regularly attend school within the regular and mandatory programs of education in Montenegro when it comes to the children from a population. We are implementing the activities on referring the children to the so-called preparation kindergartens for elementary school. This project has been piloted through the inclusive education program, which was supported through the IPA 2010 program. This program is being implemented for 3 years already, and we are seeing more and more children included in preschool institutions in Montenegro as a requirement for them being included better in the regular education system later. Our goal was to improve their language skills and communication skills, increase this socialization skills to prepare them for regular education system. We started with these activities 3 years ago, as I said already, and then we have started to communicate with the families of these children, with Roma communities, local self-governances, Red Cross organization, schools, which they are going to enlist. We have hygiene packages and other materials, and we organize trainings organized by the Education Bureau, and also we have printed the accompanying handbook with the involvement of mediators from Roma population. So during the school year 2013-2014, the children from desegregated school in Camp Konik are attending school in 6 schools in the municipality of Podgorica. So a couple of years ago we have announced a moratorium on the enlistment of children in Camp Konik because we wanted these children to desegregate them too, so that they can attend school with all of the other kids that attend school in the municipality of Podgorica. And German organization HELP and our line ministries have ensured enough shuttle buses that transport these kids to the schools throughout the Podgorica municipality, and 200 students are being transported to the elementary schools in Podgorica every day. Each year also we provide them with free textbooks and teaching materials for children from a population up until 4th year of elementary school. And also we have mediators that are taking care that children regularly attend school, cooperate with teachers and associates in school in order to increase their knowledge and so that they continue attending regularly the schools. I could also say that a certain number of kids attend high schools as well, and the Ministry for Minority and Human Rights also provides them with textbooks and scholarships. And also we cooperate with universities, and we have affirmative actions implemented in order to enroll as many of them in universities. Up until now we had 11 students that completed their studies at the university level in Montenegro. Also, the Ministry for Human and Minority Rights has recently published this so-called Roman a letter book together with the Roma National Council. So it is intended to be used in the informal education both for children and all of those interested to learn Roman language. And this will significantly improve their additional socialization and successful work within the system of education of Montenegro. But up until now, this textbook is being used outside of the official education system through camps and workshops organized, assisted by our ministry. Also, we are preparing the dictionary, Roma dictionary, and we expect that by the end of this year we will manage to complete the work on the standardization of the Roma language, and that this vocabulary will be printed. Concerning the employment, I have to say okay, maybe just a few words about employment, since we do not have much time left, but just briefly, besides the line ministries, active policy for employment of Roma population is implemented by the Employment Bureau of Montenegro, and the basic goal of concerning this population. So the number. So at the Bureau of Employment, at the moment, we have 1,118. Also, out of that, 42% are women, and this is 3.2% of total number of unemployed persons in Montenegro. These are mostly people who do not have any professional education, so active policy of employment is implemented also through additional professional training, vocational training, so that they can be better included in the labor market of Montenegro. Thank you, Blanca. I would like to add, just so that you know, the information concerning 100 containers which were donated by the US Embassy, container settlement in Camp Konik 1. This is all for our population. Also, the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, Directorate for taking care of refugees, has started with the activities of installing these 100 containers donated by the US government and their embassy in the Camp Konik 1, and we have 350 displaced persons living there from Kosovo. All of them are Rai population, and the program on repatriation of Rai population from 67, so it included 67 persons, which equals to 13 families. We continue cooperation with the World Bank and European Union NGO sector in the process of implementation of development of strategy for the Roma population. Now, Natasha Pešić, Secretary, concluding remarks, just briefly. We have to have our closing remarks.
Znači, samo da pojasnimo oko zakona.
So concerning this settlement procedure, it went to the procedure in the government. It was adopted by the government, and it will be discussed and adopted in the parliament during the the following session. Concerning the forced marriage, we know that marriage have their tradition when it comes to concluding the marriages. We also expanded the criminal code in the part of Article 216, extramarital affair with a minor, and also when it comes to the null marriages, we also reported on this in our initial report. Thank you very much.
Madam Rebrenovic, head of the delegation, I realize that we put you under some pressure with so many questions, but before closing our meeting today, I would like to ask you whether you would like to present any closing remarks to the committee. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, first of all, to thank all of you, and to say that it is obvious that thanks to the implemented reforms during the past years in Montenegro, we did a lot in the area of increasing the standards and the system of promotion and protection of fundamental values, which are part of the international instruments, as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. We are also aware that the area of human rights, among which civil and political rights, according to their nature, is a complex area, and they always leave a space for improvement. We are also aware that By being aware of this, Montenegro shall continue to contribute to the improvement of position of all of the individuals and the society as a whole. I would like to add that the fulfilling the results in this area cannot be separated from other standards of United Nations, and that during the previous period Montenegro was dedicated to the implementation of projects and recommendations after the universal periodic reporting and after we presented our reports to the Committee for Torture, Commission for Torture. I would like to thank you also for your dedication to the deliberation of national report on the situation of human rights in Montenegro, and I would like to express my hope that after the answers of the members of our delegations to the questions that were posed, that you will have the opportunity to have a realistic overview of the system of protection of human rights in Montenegro, and we assure you that Montenegro shall not only write about what we plan to do to change, to amend during the upcoming period, but we will also truly live and breathe these reforms. Thank you very much once again, and I apologize for trying to give as many information as possible in such a brief period of time.
Madam Rabrenovic, head of the delegation, and your delegation, I realize once again that the committee put you under much pressure to answer to all the questions raised, and I apologize to the members of the committee that unfortunately there was no time today to have any follow-up questions. I'm not going to try, Madam Head of Delegation, to summarize the highlights of the discussion of yesterday and today. But I think it befits me, on behalf of the committee, to express our deepest appreciation for this first dialogue with your country. This dialogue was certainly a constructive and a most informative dialogue. And you have noticed, Madam Head of Delegation, that yesterday and this morning a number of concerns, a large number of questions for clarification and further information have been raised by my colleagues. And I must say, once again, on behalf of the committee, that I very much appreciate the serious and committed manner in which you and the members of your delegation have addressed those issues and those concerns, and have tried to, sometimes in a very detailed manner, to answer the questions that we raised. I would also like to emphasize that some of the concerns that we have raised will find their way in the concluding observations. And I do hope, I express the hope that those concerns, and especially the recommendations that our committee will make to the government of your country, will prove to be of some significance in the further strengthening of the system of protection and promotion in your country. Rest me to highlight three points. First of all, I would like to remind you of the so-called 48 hours rule, because I do realize that a number of questions have not yet been answered. You and your delegation will have the opportunity to submit the written answers to those questions that could not be answered today in 48 hours' time, which means Friday at 1 o'clock p.m. Secondly, we are already looking forward to our next meeting with your delegation in the context of our committee. And I certainly hope that next time that we meet, there will be also a very visible and significant involvement of your civil society organizations in the examination of the report. And thirdly, I would like to wish you, Madam Head of Delegation, Madam Rabrenovic, and your delegation a safe trip home to your beautiful country. And having said that, the meeting is closed.
Thank you very much.